1930s he was seen by many as the most important sculptor in the world.
You would see all these people coming here by helicopters, queens, kings.
It's surrealism with a safety belt. It looks like a really nice pebble you found on the beach with a few holes in it.
The seventh son of a coal miner, Moore became interested in art at the age of 11 after listening to a Sunday school discussion about Michelangelo.
Henry Moore was a plain-speaking millionaire artist from the north of England long before Damien Hirst had even been thought of. Here he is on the media, for example.
Even if something does happen and the press rings me up, I pretend I don't know about it. That's the best way out of it. If I just walk in here in the morning, there's something that will get me thinking, or start it off, about Chac, about thought, which is what, of course, sculpture is.
These sort of bones, animal bones and things, they were all buried around here.
They've kept his studio and his bony familiars pretty much as he left them at the Henry Moore Foundation in Hertfordshire, a charity which promotes sculpture and Moore's work in particular.
This is one of the old dentist tools that will all be scrounged from his dentist, and we had loads of these sort of tools around. This one.
Partly because of this seeming frugality, perhaps, the old boy left a few quid. In fact, he was so prosperous that in the 1970s he was reportedly paying £1 million just in income tax. The signature Moore sculpture, with its perforation, became a phenomenal success and a money spinner. To adapt the old advertising slogan, it was the hole with a mint in it. But what's become of Moore's reputation in the quarter of a century or so since his death?
By the 1950s, he'd become a kind of product range. He'd become a factory, he'd become an assembly line, he'd become a brand, he'd become part of Britain's identity. And you could say that, you know, before the war, he was Henry Moore who made sculptures. But by the 1950s, he was a sculptor who made Henry Moores. And I think that's the real problem with his work.
Rarely seen BBC archive footage of Henry Moore, which will be available online from next week, reveals the mature light industry phase of the sculptor's output. But the curator of a new Moore exhibition says there's more to him than this.
One of the ambitions of our exhibition is to look at the period, the early and the middle years of Moore's career, when his work can be related not only to style and the movements of sculpture, but also to events beyond art, if you like. Whereas Moore's later work became much more about the Moorishness of it, if you like.
The sculptor didn't care to chip away at his own subconsciousness.
To try to go into what its deep motives and reasons are, I think might stop one from wanting to go on. That is, perhaps if I was psychoanalyzed, I might stop being a sculptor. I don't know, but anyhow, I don't want to stop being a sculptor.
But contemporary observers are less reticent.
It's impossible to look at the Moore carvings of the 1930s and not see a very explicit sexuality. I mean, there's a figure in the show, a reclining figure from 1931, where the upper part of the female body, the rib cage, becomes a sort of prison bars, but the bottom part is sort of twisted as if it's independent from the top, and the legs are splayed in a very obvious kind of sexual invitation. I mean, there is no doubt that a number of his sculptures has a sort of a very clear erotic charge.
I used to go into London 2 or 3 days a week to do my shelter drawings.
Critics say the Second World War cursed Moore as an artist by turning him into a national treasure. His sketches of Londoners defying the Luftwaffe in the underground helped to create the legend of the Blitz spirit. But now it seems there was more to these drawings than meets the eye.
There's this new revelation that some of the earliest drawings of this group were actually based on press photographs that he saw in picture posts. I mean, specifically the drawing which he dated to September the 12th, 1940, which would be the day after the first night of the Blitz. actually is very clearly based on 2 photographs in picture post from October 1940. Now, I don't think that's compromises in any way. I think it gives a whole new layer to Moore's modernity, if you like.
The new retrospective of the sculptor's more intimate works aims to persuade spectators that less really is more.